Good morning, everyone. It's Brenda Quintana here, and I am live from my stamping studio this morning. And I'm sorry I didn't give you much notice that I was coming on here. I'm just going to give everyone a couple minutes to get here. I need to turn on my lights. Excuse me. One thing I forgot to do this morning, get some light into my studio. So today I am putting out in the mail 50 thank you cards for my customers that ordered from me last month. And I am sending out a triangle thank you card, and I thought I would show everyone how I made it in case you get the card and you're like, oh, how did she make this? So I'm gonna do that. Let me just bring some more light into my area here so it's not so dark. Okay. All right, I think I've got the light situation under control. Okay, so this is the card that I'm going to show you how to make this morning. It's a triangle fold card. It opens like this, so that's kind of cool. And I want to show you how to make it with the Designer Series paper that's on sale this month. We have a special right now in July 2018. It's buy 3, get 1 free. And so it's a great time to stock up on your favorite paper, or maybe get paper that you were like, oh, I already have enough paper. But this paper is really, really gorgeous. Look at the beautiful roses. And this paper is called Petal Promenade. And I'm also going to show you some cards. Today's card I'm going to make with Garden Impressions, because guess what? Since I made 50 cards, I ran out of paper on the Petal Promenade. So guess what Brenda's going to do later on this month? Buy some more paper on that special. So anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to show you the cards and show you how I made them. All right, let's do this. Okay, there's my view this morning. Oh, look, if you can see in the top corner, right kind of where my window break is, right where that line is down the center. In a second, you'll probably see some kayakers. Oh, I don't know, they're too low. Let me hold this up a bit. Oh, you can't see it. Sorry, I can kind of see it from here. I'm a little higher up, but we just had some kayakers going by. We have a kayak rental place just down the river from us. And so sometimes in the morning, we've got this whole plethora of beautiful, beautiful, colorful boats going by. Very inspirational. So here are some of the cards that I made. Look at all these different great patterns of this paper. And, you know, I like to show that you could do this card with almost any pattern in that set. So it's great. It's very versatile. So I just changed up my rose colors a little bit to match the paper. I used these two are the same rose and these two are the same rose. And if you want to know all the ink colors and stuff I use, look in the description of my video. There's a link to my blog post that I just posted, and it has a full supply list, all the papers and everything. So let me move those aside for a second and show you the second batch that I made, because I ran out of Petal Promenade paper. So this one I did with Garden Impressions paper, and look how pretty those are. They look, I think they look just as pretty. Maybe it's not photorealistic paper, but it's still very pretty paper. So I think this triangle full card could work with almost any papers that are on the special. And you don't necessarily have to do a thank you focal point. You could actually, if the paper doesn't have such a busy pattern, you could use an image for the center point here. But I think this particular stamp, I'm going to leave this one out for a second so you guys can see. So I'm using the thank you from the One for All stamp set. This is a great stamp set for greetings. Look at that big happy birthday. So this one's a really good one for this busy floral paper. And then for this little rose right here, I'm using this particular flower because I felt like it kind of matched up with some of the roses in the paper. So I'm going to show you how I did that en masse, took this image and made this particular rose. But first of all, I think some of you may have seen the triangle card fold. I did not invent it, but I've seen it a lot now, and I'm like, ah, yes, we need to do this, and I thought it would make a great thank you card. So you do need a Stampin' trimmer. You might be able to do this on a different trimmer. It just depends on how much length your cutting surface has, because at some point we have to turn our cardstock like this, and it has to be able to cut all the way down. If you have a shorter trimmer, you might not be able to do that. So that's where the Stampin' trimmer comes in really handy. So to get started, we always make 2 card bases at the same time when we make a triangle card. And this is a full sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. It doesn't quite fit into on my photo here. So just imagine this is 8.5 by 11. See, 8.5 by 11. So what you're going to do is you're going to score on the 8.5 inch side here. Let me scoot this down. You're going to line this up at the 4.25 inch mark. And I've got my scoring blade up here at the top. Just make sure that's lined up properly. And I'm going to score it at 4.25. Okay. And then I'm going to turn it to the 11 inch side. And I'm going to line it up with the 5.5 inch mark. Make sure it's lined up properly, and I'm going to score it at the 5.5 inch mark. So basically I've scored it in half both ways. Now we have to remove this scoring blade. If you've never removed a blade from your trimmer, this is the best way to do it. No matter how you do it, you're going to have to remove it down here. I've moved my trimmer so you can see it down here. Maybe I'll hold it up to the camera. There is a little spot down near the bottom of your trimmer that has a bigger, right here, a bigger hole to it. Maybe I can put this, scoot this under. Nope, not a good color to do that with. Let me grab a piece of cardstock. Different colored cardstock so I can show you. See down here? It's still not a good show of how you can see it, but there is a bigger hole down here in the bottom. So you just need to move your blade down to that area. And the little trick that helps me is I use a pair of scissors, and I just go in on the edge right here, and then I just lift this off, and then the scoring blade will come off. And you can do the same thing with your cutting blade. It has a little hook right here. When you want to put it back in, you kind of come in from the side, hook it on this little ledge right here, and then press down, and then it will go back into place. That's also how you change your cutting blades if you need to change them out. So just make sure it's in that little area, and then lift it out like that. Another little tip, I also like to write on my blades if they're scoring or cutting, because I get confused. And so this way I always know that this is my scoring and the other one's my cutting blade. And I just write that on with a fine tip Sharpie. All right, so now we've got our cutting blade is in here. This will give me enough room to do the whole cutting. So what you want to do is you're going to line this up on the cutting groove from corner to corner. And it's kind of going to go over top. Let me hold this up to the camera. This is the top right here. It's going to go over top of this straight line right here. Normally you line it up right here, and then down here it's going to look like that. So just make sure I've shifted it while I lifted it off. So just make sure it is lined up on there, and then you're going to cut all the way down like that. And so now those are the 2 card bases that you need. Now here's the one thing that you want to kind of keep in mind. I want my card to open here on the bottom like this. So you're going to have to figure out which one of these is going to create that correct fold so that you have this coming this way. Otherwise, it's going to open slightly differently. Here, maybe I'll fold one card one way and the other card the other way so you can see. So I want this to open like this, and then this piece will come down and open like that. So if I did it differently, let's see, you could have it come in like this as well, okay? But I prefer this card to open this way. So if you wanted to change this card, how it folded, you just fold it in the opposite direction. But this is good to know before you put your designer series paper on. You kind of need to have an idea of, you know, which way these are going to fold, because you have to cut your designer series paper in the correct way as well. So here's my card base, and now let's cut up that designer series paper. So I'll bring in my trimmer again, and for my card I'll use a piece of paper that's 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. So I'm going to take a look here, and I need to create this piece for my card. So if I want this paper on top, I'm going to create a piece. See how this is going to match up here. So I want it to cut down. I want it to cut down here. So I'm going to slide this in so that it matches this triangle. If I cut it the opposite direction, then I'm going to, it's not going to fit the triangles properly, and you're going to have to switch your card around to this direction in order to get it to fit the triangles. So you just need to pay attention, or you'll have to use the reverse side of the paper. So that's just a little thing that you need to keep in mind. I'll show you my mistake. I made 50 cards like this, and I only made one mistake, which I think is pretty good. I'll show you my mistake, how I cut it in the opposite direction. So I'm just lining this piece up on the diagonal, on the score groove, or on the cutting groove, and then it just cuts these in half. And now these will fit on here perfectly. So here, where's my mistake piece? I put it somewhere. Here. Oh, okay. So this one I cut in the wrong direction. So look how my cut is like different. So now this one will not fit on here like this. If I wanted the other side though, I could change it around and it would fit like this. Or I have to fold the card in the opposite direction if I want to use this pattern. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are cutting those up. So now real quick, all I do is I take some Tombow, or you can use some snail adhesive. This is light paper. So you just want to use a little bit of Tombow. Sorry, I am off camera this morning. Let me move this back just a wee bit. And then I'm just going to center this on here. And I'll do the same for here. So look how easy this card's coming together. The main work of this paper is the fold and the designer series paper. Okay, and then I've already stamped thank you so much with what color ink? This was shaded spruce ink, and I cut it out with the largest stitched shapes framelit. So I want to add this to my card. Now, if I put Tombow all on the back of this, my card will not open. So you have to be kind of careful when you do this. So the one way you can do that is you can grab yourself a little pencil and make yourself a mark. So you're going to make sure it looks centered, and then you're going to make yourself a little mark here at the bottom on that whisper white here, and then find a space where it's not so busy so you can make yourself a mark. So now I know that I have to have glue within this range. So now I'm just going to take some Tombow and put it in a kind of semicircle right along here. And then I'll know when I line this back up on my pencil marks, oops, that I'm not going to have glue in a spot where I don't want it, so it will still open. All right, so then how did I get this little rose right here? So I'm using this rose bunch from the Petal Palette stamp set. I'm going to use some Melon Mambo ink. I think that matches nicely, so I'll just open up my Melon Mambo. And I want this rose right here. I think I pulled out some scrap paper this morning. This is some scrap piece of Whisper White that I have. It's just in a strip. It's a little bit over 1 inch wide. So this is the way I do it. I kind of just ink up the spot where my rose is. Don't have to ink up the whole stamp. I'm going to keep it face up, and I'm just going to plop my strip right on top of where I want it. I'm just going to rub my finger over here and see how my rose is right there. So now I'm just going to cut it out. This is not really a hard rose to cut out. I know a lot of people hate cutting things out. If you really hate cutting things out, what I suggest you do is find a flower in your stamp set collection that you like that will match the paper, and then find something that will either punch or die cut out, and then you won't have to have the bother of doing this. But I liked the way this particular rose matched the paper. Both of those papers, it matches really nicely. And this is kind of an irregular shape, so it really doesn't matter if it's not perfect. See, it's really not cut 100% perfect. So then I'll take another color of ink, and I'm going to take Blushing Bride, and I need to grab, where is my Blushing Bride? Oh, it's over here. I have a sponge dauber designated to use for Blushing Bride, so I'll open this up. And then I'm just going to take the ink and I'm just going to sponge it on the edges. I like how this goes like really fast, and I don't need to really wait for this to dry either, like if I was doing aqua painters or whatever. And I just do a little bloop in the center, and that way I have some white space in there as well. So that was pretty easy. And then I'm just going to add this to my card. So just kind of orient your flower to what you want, and then you kind of have to see where you need to put your tombow. And a little tip here, use maybe some snail. I use the thin Whisper White because sometimes I was putting too much tombow and it was actually sticking my card, my rose, to the other side of the card, which I really didn't want. So if you use maybe a piece of Terran tape, because sometimes the glue oozes out, and this time I made sure I just did a really light touch. And so there is the card. It's not a hard card, but look how easy that was to put together. Then, so you'll have some little strips of paper left over when you're using the Garden Impressions paper. So I thought for this card it might be fun just to add some paper to the inside. So I had a long skinny strip left over, so I cut this to 5.5 by about 1/2 inch. So now you can take this, and you could use this side if you wanted to, but I'm going to use the opposite side of the paper so we have a little bit of contrast on the inside. And I'm just going to add it to the bottom and the top. That way it will give the card a little definition on the inside, because it's such a wow card on the outside. But you can just add this like that just to the inside of the fold, and that will add like a little bit of a border to your card, so it'll be kind of cool. So there is the card. It's really not that hard to make. Let me see. I don't have any questions this morning, but so I'll turn my camera back around. Oh, you know what I'll do before I turn the camera back around? Let's just look at the papers that are on special, because there's some cool ones. We got the Twinkle Twinkle Designer Series paper, some kind of nice neutrals in this paper. Also, I think it would make great masculine cards. If you want to get a jump on your Christmas cards, we have the Under the Mistletoe Designer Series paper that's on the special. Nature's Poem Designer Series paper is great for your fall cards. Then, of course, the Petal Promenade paper that I used today. And just remember, it has some gorgeous, gorgeous patterns. Like, look at that. Just absolutely pretty photorealistic paper. It's gorgeous. Tranquil Textures paper is great for sea themes. Also great for masculine cards, I think. And it's a nice neutral paper. The Animal Expedition paper is fun animal themed paper. It matches one of our bundles. And I think this would be great for kids' cards. Best Root Designer Series paper, another good one for masculine cards. Then the other paper I used this morning, the Garden Impressions paper. It has so many beautiful floral patterns, just gorgeous. The Tropical Escape paper is a great summer paper. It's got lots of greens and pinks in it. It makes great summer cards. And then this paper, the Wood Textures paper, was so popular that it made it into the catalog for a second time. So this is a great neutral paper for almost any of your cards. And it's not too often that Stampin' Up! Carries over a paper. So you know that this is a good paper to have because it's carried over. They usually don't do any carryovers for paper. Sometimes they've carried over paper stacks that have neutral patterns, but rarely have we seen this, like a 6x6 pack like this carrying over. That's really unusual, so you know that's a good paper. So all of those papers are buy 3 get 1 free this month. There's no limit, so if you want to buy 8 and get 2 free, you can do that as well. I'm going to be stocking up because guess what? When I made 50 cards, I actually used up some of my Designer Series paper, so I get to buy some new ones on the sale. So that is really great. Let me turn the camera around. All right. Well, I hope if you're my customer and you got one of my triangle cards or will be getting one in the mail, I hope you enjoy it. And I hope if you need to know how to make it, that you're watching this video as a recording and you'll see how easy it is. And I love the paper that's on special. I love it when Stampin' Up! Does a nice special for us. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I'm going to be trying to do a few Facebook Lives before I leave on the incentive trip, so I hope you'll catch me on one of those before then. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.